Inside every cell in your body is a recycling system. It pulls apart damaged proteins, broken organelles, and metabolic waste, then reuses the parts. Scientists call it autophagy. When that system runs hot, you stay biologically younger. When it slows down, you start aging faster. There are people in Silicon Valley right now spending 6 and 7 figures a year on drugs and supplements trying to flip that switch on. The funny thing is, your kitchen already has the tools. We are going to walk through what leading longevity researchers, Greger, Attia, Longo, Hyman, Murphy, and Rattan, actually wrote about which foods turn this on, what doses they recommend, and where the science is still soft. Let's start with what autophagy really is. Here is the one-sentence version. Cells dismantle damaged proteins and worn-out parts, then reuse the building blocks. Think of it as your body's quality control system, working at the molecular level. When that pathway slows down, damaged junk starts piling up inside your cells, and that accumulation is one of the things aging actually is. So the practical question becomes, which foods and habits keep the pathway running hot? We will walk through them next. Here is the context for why this is in the news right now. 2 lanes have opened up. On the left, the expensive lane, rapamycin prescriptions, intravenous NAD plus infusions, NMN powders, multi-thousand-dollar fasting protocols, plasma exchange. People are spending serious money chasing the same biology we are about to walk through. On the right, the food lane, coffee, green tea, mushrooms, wheat germ, tempeh, vinegar, fiber, a handful of spices. The interesting part is that both lanes target the exact same underlying machinery. One just has much better marketing. Now, the food lane is not magic. It will not give you the dose response of a prescription drug, but it is the lane with the longest safety record and the most peer-reviewed evidence. Let's look at who agrees this matters. Before we go any further, here is the mental model that ties the rest of this together. There are 3 different switches, and different foods hit different switches, but they all flow into the same outcome. First lever, AMPK, your cellular energy sensor. Coffee, vinegar, fiber, and a few specific compounds like berberine all turn AMPK up. Second lever, mTOR. mTOR is the growth signal. When it is on, cells grow. When it is off, cells clean. Green tea EGCG, sulforaphane from broccoli, and curcumin from turmeric all turn mTOR down. Third lever, direct autophagy triggers. Spermidine, found in tempeh, mushrooms, and wheat germ, walks straight up to the autophagy machinery and starts it. All 3 converge on the same outcome, autophagy on, damaged parts recycled, cells reset. So when we go through specific foods next, just think about which lever each one is pulling. If autophagy is the pathway, spermidine is the keystone molecule. Quick history note. It was discovered in 1678. The name is unfortunate. It comes from the bodily fluid it was first isolated from, and we will leave it at that. The data is what matters. Mice fed extra-dietary spermidine lived up to 25% longer. In humans, a long-running prospective study, Keachel 2018, found that people in the top third of dietary spermidine intake, around 12 milligrams a day, were biologically as young as people 5.7 years younger in the bottom third. And in the drug age database, which catalogs every compound ever tested for lifespan extension, spermidine had the largest effect with the fewest side effects. Greger, Longo, Hyman, and Rattan all single it out as the dietary lever worth knowing. So the obvious next question is, where do you actually get it? This is the spermidine kitchen. Greger's recommended daily target is at least 20 milligrams. The average American gets about 9, so most of us are running at less than half. Tempeh is the highest source, almost 10 milligrams per 100-gram serving. Mushrooms are right behind. Mango is your dessert option, 6 milligrams in a small mango. Green peas land at almost 6 per 100 grams, and the data shows green peas are actually the #1 source of spermidine in the average U.S. diet, mostly because we eat a lot of frozen peas without realizing it. Soy milk gives you almost 4 per cup, and wheat germ is the cheapest milligram per dollar by a mile, 2.5 milligrams per tablespoon for almost nothing. The two side findings worth knowing on wheat germ specifically. Ramit 2011, half a teaspoon a day, reduced hair shedding significantly in a small clinical trial. And Greger also cites a trial where adults with mild dementia eating wheat germ-fortified rolls saw cognitive improvements that exceeded standard medications. Read that carefully. This is not a cure. The trial was small, but the effect size is striking, and the food is essentially free. Now let's pivot to something more familiar that does similar work. Coffee is the surprise on this list. Caffeine is a potent autophagy stimulant. The interesting twist is that decaf works essentially as well. The active compound is not the caffeine. It is chlorogenic acid, the most abundant antioxidant in the bean. In mice given a human equivalent dose, autophagy started within hours. Greger covers this in detail, and Attia, who is the most cautious of these authors about food claims, also lands on coffee as a positive. So if you drink coffee already, this is a free upgrade. If you cannot tolerate caffeine, decaf is not a compromise here. It is doing the same work. One caveat: the dose response in humans is not as well studied as in mice, and the studies are mostly on 3 to 5 cups a day. Now let's look at the other big drinkable on the list. Green tea is the second drinkable, and it works through a slightly different mechanism. EGCG, the main catechin, hits two longevity pathways at once. First, it suppresses mTOR, which is the same pathway the prescription drug rapamycin targets. Lower mTOR signaling tells cells to shift away from growth and toward maintenance and repair, which is what you want as you age. Second, it activates SRT3, a mitochondrial sirtuin that raises NRF2, your body's main antioxidant program. Researchers also classify EGCG as a hormetin, which means a small dose of mild stress that triggers a much larger protective response. 3 to 5 cups a day is where the human studies cluster. And here is the practical note. Do not add dairy milk to green tea. It binds to the catechins and blocks most of the benefit. We will come back to mTOR in a minute, because there is a real disagreement among these authors about how aggressively to target it. Quick reset on where we are. Autophagy is the cleanup pathway. mTOR is the partner pathway, the engine of aging in Greger's words. When mTOR is on, your cells are in growth mode. When it is off, they shift into maintenance mode and turn up autophagy. So, the practical question is, which foods, which way? On the left, the suppressors. Green tea, EGCG. Coffee, tomato. Sulforaphane from broccoli and broccoli sprouts. Curcumin, capsaicin. Soy isoflavones. On the right, the amplifiers. Dairy milk has 3 times the leucine of human milk. Milk is literally a hormone signaling system designed to make babies grow. Whey has the highest leucine of any food source. Branched-chain amino acid powders. Red meat at high doses. Now, mTOR is not bad. You need it for muscle protein synthesis after a workout. The question is timing and total daily exposure. And on that question, the experts disagree. This is where the experts diverge, and you should hear all 3 positions before you decide. Longo says cut protein when you are young, then raise it after 65. He cites a 6,000-person American cohort where high protein intake under 65 produced a 75% higher overall mortality and a 4-fold cancer death risk. The same study showed the effect flips after 65, where low protein then becomes harmful. Greger lands in the middle, 0.8 of a gram of protein per kilogram of body weight, lifelong, with a strong preference for plant sources. He cites the NIH AARP study with 6 million person-years, where swapping just 3% of animal calories for plant calories was associated with 10% lower overall mortality. Attia goes the other direction. He wants protein high lifelong, especially after 50, because sarcopenia, the loss of muscle mass with age, kills more people than people realize. All 3 of them are looking at real data. They are just weighing different risks. There is no clean answer here, but you should pick a framing on purpose, not by default. If you only do one thing from this whole list, this is the cheapest. Vinegar and fiber both feed AMPK, which is the partner pathway that turns autophagy on and turns mTOR off. 2 teaspoons of vinegar a day, sprinkled on food or diluted in tea, gives you a measurable AMPK bump from the acetic acid alone. And here is the part that surprised me. Your gut bacteria ferment dietary fiber into acetic acid, the same compound in vinegar. So 30 grams of daily fiber from beans, oats, vegetables produces more than 4 tablespoons worth of vinegar inside your colon every single day. Never drink vinegar straight. It will damage your tooth enamel and irritate your throat. Always sprinkle it on food or dilute it. With those 2 adjustments, vinegar plus fiber, you have a steady AMPK signal running in the background for almost no cost. This is the slide you do not see often on YouTube longevity videos, but it is the most important one. Here is what we do not know. The NMN and NR story is the cautionary tale. At least 10 human trials showed NR successfully boosts blood NAD+, in some cases by 168%. That part works. The problem is, not one of those trials found a meaningful clinical benefit. Not on artery function, blood pressure, blood sugar, body weight, exercise capacity, muscle strength, or mitochondrial function. So just because a compound moves a biomarker does not mean it makes you live longer or feel better. Second, the Spermidine human data is mostly correlational. Animal data is strong. Human studies are mostly dietary cohorts, not randomized trials. The wheat germ and dementia finding is one small RCT, not confirmed. Third, the dose response in humans is fuzzy. Most autophagy data comes from cells in a dish, or rodents. And fourth, timing matters. You probably do not want autophagy on 24/7. You want windows. The point is not to be cynical. The point is to be honest about where the evidence is strong and where it is still preliminary. Here is what an actual autophagy-leaning day looks like, with no supplement aisle and no $1,000 protocol. Morning. Coffee or decaf, your call, both work. Add a bowl of oats with a tablespoon of wheat germ stirred in. That is 2.5 milligrams of spermidine before you have left the house. Midday. A grain bowl with tempeh, mushrooms, and leafy greens, dressed with a vinaigrette that uses 2 teaspoons of vinegar. The tempeh and mushrooms together get you most of your daily spermidine target. Afternoon. 1 to 2 cups of green tea, no dairy milk. The dairy binds to the catechins and blocks the benefit. Evening. Beans or lentils as your protein anchor, with a cruciferous vegetable like broccoli or kale on the side. Snack. Half a mango is roughly 6 milligrams of spermidine. Add it up and you are at 20 plus milligrams of spermidine, 30 plus grams of fiber, 2 teaspoons of vinegar, plus your green tea and coffee, every day. That is the plate. These are the researchers behind everything we just walked through. Gregor, who synthesizes plant-based nutrition evidence at scale. Attia, longevity medicine and performance, the most cautious of the group. Longo, who built the fasting-mimicking diet protocol. Hyman, functional medicine. Murphy, molecular biology of aging at Princeton. And Rattan and Core, biogerontology. They disagree on a lot. They converge on this. If this was useful, the 60-second version drops Thursday. Hit subscribe so you do not miss it. And if you want every ingredient on this list already in your fridge, ready to eat, that is what we do at Super Veggie Delivery. Thanks for watching.